And welcome back, or just welcome if you're new here. My name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And we are continuing my foray into my favorite 10 out of 10 classic movies with 1957's Peyton Place. It's just a penny ante, Peyton Place, and you're all Harper Valley hypocrites. I wondered what penny ante meant. I remember I had to ask my grandpa. I was like, Gran, what is penny ante? It's a penny ante Peyton Place. As well, a penny ante is a cheap poker game. You know, you have to ante up. Rich people, they be anteing up $5 and $10 and stuff like that. But poor people play for pennies. So if somebody is calling it a penny ante Peyton Place, that means that it's a cheap, poor white trash Peyton Place. Yeah, so there you go. Somebody out there just learned something. I know you did. Now you know what penny ante Peyton Place means. But Peyton Place was released in 1957, and it stars Lana Turner, Lee Phillips, Lloyd Nolan, and yes, 10 out of 10 to me. Now, this is kind of a convoluted movie. It's very long. It's an epic movie. How long is it? It's like just the way I like them too. 2 hours and 40 minutes long. 2 hours and 40 minutes long. So definitely no 90-minute shit. So it's kind of hard to keep it, keep this video short. Because there's lots of stories. But we are introduced with an Allison narration. Allison McKenzie is narrating. And we see someone arriving in town. And it's Michael. We see Selena, who, as he passes by, we get a little taste, because it's all of these side stories coming together. It's like a little soap opera. That's why they, had that soap opera named after it. But you see a little scene with Selena, and her older brother is like leaving, and the mom's begging him not to leave, and he's like, I can't put up with Lucas anymore. That's their stepdad. And he's going to leave, and Lucas comes out and like begs him to stay. I promise I'll stop drinking. I'll get a job, and stuff like that. But Paul starts running off anyway, and Selena gives him what little money she's got. Because he's like, please don't try to stop me. She's like, no, I agree with you. Go. I would if I could. So we get a little taste of that. We're introduced. That's how we're introduced to them. We also then see that Selena's mom, that we had just seen in that little scene, she's actually the Mackenzie's maid, Constance. Now, Constance is Allison's mother. So we've got Constance and Allison McKenzie. Supposedly her father died when she was 2. So she's a single woman with that. They argue about that, as a matter of fact, because she's got this little ritual when she leaves for school. She kisses the picture, and her mom's like, oh, would you stop that, And it's just so ridiculous. You're a senior in high school, for God's sakes. But when we get to school, we're sort of introduced to some of the other main characters, as they are supposed to. They're talking about senior prom, and they've got a letter written that Allison wrote. She wants to be a writer when she grows up. Well, she is grown up now, but you know what I'm saying. They're reading a letter for her to read, because they think she's fixing to be the new principal, because the old one died. So we get introduced to some of our other main characters. There's Ted, who's gorgeous. That's Selena's boyfriend. Betty, the town fast girl, Norman, who's just a doll, and Rodney, which is Betty's girlfriend, Betty's boyfriend. And yeah, so that's pretty much the main ones: Ted, Betty, Norman, Rodney, Selena, Allison. Those are the and Constance and Michael. Those are the main characters of the movie. Well, and Lucas Cross. But we then learn that she didn't get it. The teacher did not get it. Instead, that Michael guy who was coming into town, he is the new principal. So the senior class is all pissed off about that, and we see them getting ready for prom, buying their dresses, things like that. Constance is at the cafe and meets the principal, the new principal, Michael, whom she's heard about already now from Allison. So they have a little argument over sexual education in schools. It's like she's very, very prudish and stuff like that. So Allison is having a birthday party, and that's where, that's why Constance was at the cafe, was because Allison was having a party at home for her birthday, and her mom was trying to give her a little freedom, to be independent and not be chaperoned at the party. However, that doesn't work out very well, because when she gets back, they've got the lights off, and couples here and there are necking and things like that, and they have a huge giant fight because of it. We see that Allison and Norman are kind of very friendly. Both of them are sort of outcasts. Allison isn't sure about life in Peyton Place, and Norman is a sad case. He's got a very, very overprotective mother who won't let him out of her sight, and he doesn't know anything about anything. And here he is, a senior in high school. So him and Allison sort of get together often, and they just to have normal conversation because both of them are in very prudish households, and they would like to talk about some of the feelings that they have as 17-and-a-half-year-olds, So Michael visits Constance, the principal, to tell her that Allison has been named valedictorian of the class, and asks her to chaperone the dance, trying to get her out of her shell. He's also very attracted to her, you can tell that. Now, Rodney's dad, in their little story, Rodney's father is furious when he finds out how serious Rodney and Betty are together. And he makes him call her and uninvite her to the prom, which was humiliating for her, I'm sure. And he's very, very if you want a job, if you want to go to college, if you want my help, you'll do what I say, and you're not going to date that tramp, is basically it. She is the town tramp, and I'm not having my son married to her. So there's a bit of drama. We see that the dance takes place, and that's one cool scene. Rodney gets Betty to go out to the car with him, where he tries to, hit that, at which point she tricks him into going for that, only to bash him over the head with a purse, and put a nice shiner on him. It's like, you're a fucking wimp daddy's boy, and you call me and uninvite me to the prom, and then want me to put out for you. And yeah, right, no, that's not going to happen. So she definitely rebukes him. Ted ends up asking Selena in their storyline to marry him, but she's like, no, I'm just poor white trash. You've got a chance, you want to be a lawyer, you need to go on to college. And he's like, yeah, but, it'll take so long and stuff like that. So that's kind of a sweet storyline. But she refuses him and wants him to go to college, so he ends up leaving that night after the prom, at which point Lucas, the stepfather, promptly beats and rapes Selena, her stepdad. So, graduation's done. We have a little bit of summer narration from Allison. Things are changing. We're all out of school now. What are we going to do with our lives? Stuff like that. Mike, the principal, gives Allison advice on writing, and even gets her a job at the local paper, where we then see Selena going to the doctor, where she advises him, or he advises her, that she is pregnant. And you're like, oh, well, that's not good. You're pregnant by your stepfather who raped you. That's not cool at all. So, she's 3 months pregnant. She kind of hints around for an abortion. He's like, I can't do that, because this was set in 1941. Keep that in mind. Always keep the settings of these movies in mind. It was released in 1957, this movie, but it's set in 1941. So, no, that's illegal. You can't do that. So, she's kind of stuck. What are you going to do? So, he refuses, and he ends up making her tell him what's going on. Because he's like, why don't Ted just marry you? You know what I mean? I mean, you are graduated. You are like 18, It's not like you're 12. And she ends up having to tell him why. Is because it's Lucas. It's her stepfather that's who this baby is. So he goes there and confronts Lucas and actually runs him out of town. Makes him sign a piece of paper admitting to this. If you ever come back, I will give it to the cops. Blah, blah, blah. Well, that night, he attacks her again and tries to kill her. This causes her to go down a hill where she then ends up having a miscarriage. I think the doctor was probably going to do an abortion anyway, but I don't know, they didn't. The story moves as the story moves, so you don't know what he was going to do. But I think he was going to cover his ass for the abortion by having Lucas sign this. That way, if anybody found out about the abortion, then he would have this as proof of why he did that. But he didn't get the chance anyway because she had a thing. He still hides it, though. They changed the records to make it say that he took her appendix out because even though he's done nothing wrong, which he is now because he's changing the records, but he's only doing that was because nobody knew she was pregnant. And who wants to say this? Now, when the doctor had confronted him, her mom was coming in the back door and heard it. Okay. So, the next day, she's in the hospital. Selena is in the hospital recovering from this appendectomy when Ellie, the mother, she goes to work there at Allison and Constance's house, and promptly they're all gone because, the town is having the big town picnic. So she had went on to work, obviously very, very despondent. And Constance and Mike leave because Constance can't handle listening to Ellie go on and on about how terrible her life is, which will probably be understandable. Your husband's gone. You know that he raped your daughter. Yeah. There's a reason to be despondent. So they go riding to relax. The rest of the folk are at the town picnic, and you see various little aspects of each of their little storylines, dramatic storylines in the movie. Unfortunately for Allison, she and Rodney and Betty, they go and meet at the lake. And then she and Norman, Allison and Norman, they're also at the lake. But they they brought their swimming gear, but Rodney and Betty, they did not. So Rodney and Betty went skinny dipping and stuff like that. And the nosy bitch in town, Mildred, I think her name is, she sees them. They see them. But because they had seen Allison and Norman on their bikes when they were coming to the lake, when they were driving to the lake to go fishing, they assume that the people they saw skinny dipping was Allison and Norman, but it wasn't. It was Rodney and Betty. But she goes and blabs it all over town. So when Allison does get back, when they do get back, Constance has called, Norman's mother. They have come over. They're waiting for them, jump them the second they come in, accuse them of being nasty and doing stuff. This, really causes a huge fight. She leaves. Norman's mom and Norman leave, with him going, we didn't do anything. And Allison gets mad and goes running upstairs, and you hear her scream, and Constance runs up there after her, and there is Ellie, Selena's mom, dead as yesterday, hanging in the closet, hanging in Allison's closet, which was very rude, in my opinion. And can't you go to the woods and something? I mean, Allison never did nothing to you. You go and hang yourself in her closet? What was up with that? So that was traumatic. That sends Allison into kind of a breakdown. A short-lived one, but still. It was still a breakdown. So Betty and Rodney, they have eloped. They come home married, and where he is confronted by his dad, his dad, who's like, you married that tramp? Look, you ain't getting shit from me no more. That's all right, Dad. I love her. Okay, fine. I tell you what, this is the only thing I'll do for you. I'll give you a lowly peon job here at my company. But as far as being the owner's son and getting any privileges or anything like that, no, you married that bitch. No. So that was their part, their storyline. Right, he refuses to accept her, but he can just stay for this little peon job, probably to rub his nose in it. Now, during this time, of course, the war starts, World War II. Or we enter the war, anyway. And pretty much all of the guys are drafted, Rodney, Ted, Norman, all of them go off to it. There's a really sad scene where Rodney is actually killed, and the dad, at the memorial, the dad and Betty kind of make up a little bit, because they're the only family each other's got now, whether they liked each other or not. Mike is going to move away because he's been offered a better job. Constance, of course, won't have hardly anything to do with him because of everything that's happened. She ends up telling him the truth about her situation, and that was that she had never been married to Allison's father. That was a lie. That she was a mistress. That she was the mistress of a married man, She got knocked up, and then before anything could be done about it, that married man died, got killed in a car wreck or something, leaving her unmarried with the kid. And that's the reason she had moved to this small town, been such a prude, and just raised her daughter as a widow when she never really was a widow. So Allison had already left because of that thing with Selena's mother. Her and her mom had a big knockdown, drag out fight, and she was like, that fight that they had about Norman and her skinny dipping. So she had told her that as soon as she could walk, after this trauma of finding that woman in her closet, that she was leaving, never to see, speak to her again. And it was pretty much damn near the truth too. I mean, that one thing about Allison, when she said something, she meant it. And she told her that she was going away to New York and she was never coming back and never speaking to her again. And she did. That's what ends up making Constance tell Michael the truth about it all, and that Allison was gone and never coming back. It was one of the most stunning parts of the movie too, is when because she had told Allison that same thing. She had told the truth to Allison as well right before she left, and when she did, and Allison told her she was moving away, never to speak to her again. She was like, you can't do that. What are you going to do when you get up there? And she's like, I'll get a job. I'll do whatever. And the mom says, and what if you can't? That's when Allison turned to her and said, then I'll just live off some man like you did. And you're like, oh, that was good. That was a good burn. That was a good burn. So, after she had told Mike about it all, they end up getting together. And it's like maybe they're going to be all right. And they were. They stayed together for the rest of the movie. So, he brought her out of her shell, and she found love again, and he found love. Now, Lucas shows back up at Selena's house with her and her little brother. He's been gone. Turns out he was in the Navy. He had went off and joined the Navy, and he was out on furlough. So she had been raising her little brother. He attacks her again, and right in front of her little brother, he tries to rape her again. No, it's not going to work this time, because she picks up a piece of firewood, and she beats him to death with it. So the Navy ends up coming, looking for him, thinking that he has went AWOL. She says she hasn't seen him. They show up at her work because she works for Constance at Constance's dress store, clothing store. She says she hasn't seen him. But then when they leave, Constance notices how strange she's acting and crying and asks her what's wrong. And Selena breaks down and tells her that Lucas isn't missing, that Lucas isn't AWOL, that Lucas, she killed him in front of her brother, and that they together buried him. Her brother's like 8, 9. That they buried him in the sheep pen in the yard at their shack where they lived. So that freaks Constance out, and Constance is like, look, I can't. Either me or you has got to pick up that phone and call the police. So she ends up being put on trial for murder, and they bring in Lauren Green as the prosecutor. And they are going to really and truly try her for murder. Now, the doctor knows what went on, right? But Selena has sworn him to secrecy, and he's like, but you'll go to prison. I mean, you're arguing self-defense, but you don't have a lot. But just it's just he said, she said, and your 9-year-old brother said. With the information that I know, what was done to you, it'll be a easy. They'll believe you. No, she refuses because she's so worried that the town will hurt Ted, her boyfriend, and that he would never be able to become a lawyer and stuff like that because of the shame of what, took place. That the murder is bad enough. Knowing that I was raped and impregnated by my stepfather is just one step too far in her mind. So, Norman ends up coming home with Purple Heart, so he lives through it. So does Ted. And Allison comes back. I mean, Selena was her best friend. So Allison comes back to attend the trial and has several confrontations where her mother tries to speak to her. She's like, fuck off. She refuses. So they have the trial. Like I said, Lauren Green plays the prosecutor who is definitely going to win because he's a big fancy prosecutor, and she is claiming self-defense, but it's not like she's beaten up or anything. He didn't get the chance to beat her up this time because she stopped it before anything bad happened by killing his ass. So there's not a lot of proof on her side is what I'm saying. So like the trial begins. Now the doctor, he realizes this pretty quickly after they show you a lot of the testimony from Constance, from Allison, and stuff like that, and even the little brother. But you can tell if this is no Perry Mason moment. You know what I mean? They're going to defend. She's going to prison. She's going to lose. And the doctor, he recognizes this, and so he's like. He ends up going to her lawyer and going, I've got something to say, put me on the stand. So they put him on the stand. And of course, Selena doesn't want it, but they put him on the stand. And he tells the court. Now, not only does he tell the court about Lucas's rape of Selena, about how she had, he then tried to kill her and causing a miscarriage. And then he pulls out that letter that he had made him sign, confessing to it all back when he ran him out of town. So, along with doing all of that, he gives the town a very big lecture on hypocrisy, on being judgmental, gossiping, doing things to people and making them afraid to tell the truth, making them ashamed of being who they are and what they are, and that just this whole atmosphere is what has caused this and similar situations. And they end up then finding her not guilty. So Ted is happy and accepts her and tells her that it was okay. And Constance's testimony was very moving, because she's sort of, Selena, her own daughter, she sort of sees the mistakes that she made, and she kind of broke down on the stand. And I think this changed Allison's mind about the situation. So all is forgiven, and then it's like when Selena leaves the courtroom after being acquitted, there's this pregnant pause, where like pretty much everybody in town is there, and everybody stares at her and she stares at everybody. It's a good like 5 second, 10 second. Yeah, about 10 to 15 seconds. Pregnant pause. Crickets, man. I mean, like nobody says a word, and you don't know what's fixing to happen. It's either we're happy for you, we're so sorry this happened, or it's you're a fucking slut whore, murderer. You don't know which one, and you're just kind of like, come on. And sure enough, everybody, suddenly breaks out into smiles and congratulations, and we're so sorry this happened to you, and everything's all right. So yeah, and Allison ends up, they think that she left. Michael and Constance thinks that she left. They end up going over there to back to her home when they hear somebody running down the street, and it's Allison who runs up, and mom and daughter forgive each other for all of that. So we end up with forgiveness and redemption and justice for some horrible acts. And that's it. That's Peyton Place. Or my little synopsis of a 3-hour soap opera. And, yeah. I think I did 31 minutes. That was pretty damn good for a 3-hour movie to cut down. There's a lot of it. Peyton Place is an absolute... Peyton Place, to me, is what birthed Dallas and Knots Landing and Dynasty. This format of not soap opera-y, but prime time, nighttime soap opera-y. And there's a difference between The Guiding Light and As the World Turns and Dallas and Dynasty and Flamingo Road and Knots Landing. The themes, the behavior, the stuff that goes on is a lot more adult, a lot more dramatic, and it's just a lot more than a soap opera. It's like a soap opera on steroids. But Peyton Place is pretty much the best one in movie form ever. And I consider it like the spiritual cradle that produced Knots Landing and Dallas and stuff like that. The themes in this movie, from burgeoning sexuality to lies, gossip, overbearingness, rape, incestuous rape, all of this kind of stuff is pretty shocking. It is a very controversial movie, and I love it. Peyton Place, Lana Turner. Yes, sirree. And I will see you in the next one. Love you, miss you. Bye. Always remember and never forget you're a very, very, very special individual. Even if you're not a lying gossip from a penny ante Peyton Place. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.